We have the SSG10 in pieces and now we have to put it back together. I'm gonna start with the trigger box because that is probably the most tricky part in this whole assembly video. So let's get started. There is a lot of different pieces. I already have it connected with the spring. Just check out how this looks. This is how it should be connected. Now check out all the parts. Don't forget these discs, plastic Teflon discs that are on the side of these parts. Also right here on the trigger. Have it prepared like this and we can start putting it back together. So I'm gonna take the sear and I'm gonna put it in place. Then the trigger with the pin itself. Okay, don't forget these Teflon discs. You can also do it like this, first with the pin and then the trigger itself. And now here we have a spring. Don't forget to put it there. So now I'm gonna close it and I'm gonna slowly start putting everything where it belongs because everything is under a slight spring tension. So we need to, move our way there. I'm gonna start in the front. Screw here. Then I'm gonna hold the sear in the front and I'm gonna push it a little bit down. Another screw here, gonna fix them a little bit. And now this last piece. One screw and last screw here in the back, just like that. Check if the sear is still moving, check if the trigger is moving, if it's under spring tension. This is what you should get. And now we can tighten all the screws. You can put screw glue in here because the only thing that can really break is the spring, which doesn't happen often. I would assume this will last you a long time, so it is a good idea to put screw glue in there on the screws, mild one, not the strong one, so that the screws just don't come loose on you. But you will still be able to disassemble it if necessary. So use a middle strength screw glue or even low power screw glue is fine. Don't over tighten them too much, just reasonable amount of force. And that's it. Again, I'm gonna check everything, if everything is under spring tension. Now safety looks like this. We have a screw, we have the spring in there, and it goes right here. Like I said in the disassembly video, you can choose to not use the safety if it happens to you that when you rack the bolt, you put it accidentally on safe. There is always this option not to put it back. I prefer that. But then you have to be careful with not having the rifle loaded when you are in the safe zone, things like that. Just be careful. Because obviously you don't have a safety. Safety should click in place. You can still turn it around because it's not installed in the gun itself. But this is how it should be. Okay, perfect. Trigger box is pretty much done. Everything works, so we can set it aside for now. Now let's continue with the cylinder. Here we have the bolt handle. And now here with the end cap, there is a spring inside of the end cap and this pin. So make sure they are there. And now we can put this thing back in place. So how does this work? Here you have the cut. The bolt handle should be approximately in this position, and the bolt cap with this facing upwards. Then you will be able to put everything in place, tighten the screw. On this screw, it is very useful to put screw glue on this one, because, you know, when you rack the bolt over and over, it can get loose. You don't want that. Middle strength screw glue is the way to go for this one. Just one drop, it will be enough. To check it if it works, have this facing you, and you should be able to, you know, operate this bolt handle. It should click in place. This looks perfect to me. Now, spring guide goes in. The spring, you have to put it on the spring guide. Actually, you can do it just like this, you know, just push it in there. The bolt, the piston, and close it with the cylinder head. You can close it with your fingers just like that. If you have a stronger spring, maybe you will need an Allen key. Just place it like this, tighten it a little bit, don't overdo it. You don't need much force, and now the cylinder is complete, or the bolt is complete. Now let's move on to the inner barrel with the hop-up chamber. So here we have the hop-up arm with one spacer, Teflon ring, and one on the top, just like this. Now I'm gonna put back the hop-up bucking. Cut facing up, these two lines facing up. This wing is facing towards me. Wiggle it a little bit around, make sure everything fits. There is actually a line on the inside of the hop-up bucking which goes into this groove on the barrel. So you shouldn't be able to turn it with slight force. This looks pretty good. And now we have this little C-clip or ring which goes over the bucking, just like that. And the opening in the ring right here should be aligned with this groove right here, because then when I close the chamber, it will actually squeeze the ring together, which will help with the air seal of the SSG10. Place it there carefully, just like that. The O-ring should be in the front of the bucking. Okay, perfect. Now we put in this piece with the spring. It will stay in place. So this edge of the thing should be facing, you know, the cylinder, and it should just slide freely inside. And the last piece missing is the arm, which has a pin right here with a spring underneath. This is what does the clicking when you are adjusting the hop-up. So make sure you have the pin and the spring inside. So this little spring goes here, and the pin goes right on top of that. Place it in there like this, and now we are ready to close the hop-up chamber. Now, if it doesn't want to get closed, it's probably this black thing right here. And now, as you can see, I can just close it with my fingers. Easy to do. Make sure that the hop-up bucking sits nicely in this window, that it's not pinched, that it's not forcing it open again, the whole chamber. And generally speaking, everything should be nice and aligned. Your hop-up chamber is probably already black because we switched the color. It is the same thing, it's not an upgrade, it's literally just the color. Now 2 screws go in. Okay, reasonable amount of force. Don't over tighten these screws because you can damage the threads and you won't be able to close the hop-up chamber. So now this is clicking, that's a good sign. This is also moving, you can check it, you know that it's moving freely, the pressure plate or the pressure arm, hop-up arm. Now we can put in this piece back in. It's actually better to just take the metal tube and then put this thing back in, and now we can already start adjusting the hop-up. But first we need to fix it in place with this screw right here, this tiny little guy with the big head. So now again, I'm gonna start first turning, unscrewing it. I'm gonna listen for the click. Now it clicked, and now I can go in. This way I can make sure I don't damage the thread. Tiny bit of force. Everything works, looking good. And now we connect these two plastic things together with the rest of the screws that are from the hop-up chamber assembly. You are screwing it into plastic, so tiny bit of force, not more. It's really not necessary. These are not getting undone. Okay, perfect. Hop-up chamber is done. And now we can already start assembling the whole SSG10. Now we can continue with the barrel, outer barrel. Just find the hole in the spacer, which is located in the middle. Align it, get it in there, and just slide it forward. Align this hole with the hole in the hop-up chamber. Just like that. And now, usual mistake, I almost done it again. Take the hop-up adjustment lever and put it back in place, because if you skip this, you will have to unscrew the hop-up block again. So here we have this screw again. I usually tend to forget this, and then I have to do it again. Okay, tiny bit of force, test it, again, if everything works, align this hole, and now the hop-up block goes on there. So, from the side it looks like this. This is higher on the right side, this part is lower, or shorter. Back in place, two screws on the inside. If you left them there, yeah, you actually cannot switch these screws with pretty much anything else because they are pretty unique. One is there, again, not too much force. So now I have an issue that this screw doesn't want to grab the thread, so I'm gonna untighten this slightly, and this makes space for this one to go in. Now it's there, and I can tighten this one again. So if you encounter this, now just undo the other one, and everything will be good. Everything looks good, and that's pretty much the whole barrel. Now we need the receiver, and here we have the spacer or the glide ring. That's how we call it. Place it inside, nice and flat, and now we can screw the barrel and the receiver together.
When putting these parts back together, just make sure that you put the glide ring back as well. It fits right in here. You can see there are two notches right here. That's exactly where you fit in the ring, like so. And it's back on.
put the cylinder back in, close it. Now screw it in all the way and go one turn back, and this is the right place to put in the screw that fixes it together or prevents it from turning. Okay. Perfect, everything looks good. And now we can put the trigger box back in place. Just like that, we have two screws which look like this. Now everything clicked nicely in place. And now I can tighten both of them. And the last thing missing is the stock. So I will take the trigger guard. Here there is an insert in case of the A1 stock. If you have a different stock, it might look a little different, but the principle is the same. Or there is no insert. Perfect, and now just place this inside and it should snap easily together. You shouldn't be forcing anything. You can wiggle the trigger around a little. For example, the A2 stock, you really need to align the trigger, so use the trigger and make everything snap in place nicely. Okay, everything looks good, and I can put the screws back in. So, shortest screw goes in the front, middle length goes in the middle, and the longest goes in the back. That is the same for every single SSG10. The insert that is connecting the two things was a little bit off, so I couldn't put the screw in. I check it, I see that it's preventing it from going into the thread. Just take something, just make it aligned. Now I can put it back in. And now it grabbed the thread and it's done. Then this screw right here, the order doesn't really matter. And the middle. Okay, I'm gonna double check this one. Nice and tight. Perfect. Everything works just as it should. And now I can put back on the scope and the bipod, and I'm done with the assembly. So it wasn't too hard. I hope this video helped you, and I will see you in the next one.